Have you ever delayed an important step because you were waiting for everything to feel certain? Perhaps you keep searching for the perfect plan, believing that once every danger is removed and every question is answered, you will finally feel ready. But life really gives us that kind of promise, and sometimes, while we are trying to avoid every wrong turn, we stop moving completely. This is the story of Elias Rowan, a man who could draw every mountain road with extraordinary precision, yet could no longer find the path back to his own heart. Elias lived in Belmere, a quiet town surrounded by misty mountains, narrow rivers, stone cottages, and old wooden bridges. He was known throughout the region as its finest mapmaker. Merchants trusted his routes, travelers carried his maps through dangerous valleys, and families visited his workshop before long journeys because Elias checked every bridge, measured every distance, and marked every dangerous turn with care. People often said, if Elias drew the road, you could trust it with your life. Yet the man who knew almost every path beyond Belmere rarely traveled anywhere himself. Each morning, before the town awakened, Elias unlocked his workshop, studied the weather, adjusted his brass compass, arranged his rulers, and wrote the date inside a small leather notebook. Nothing was ever left to chance. The walls around him were covered with detailed maps, but one corner remained hidden beneath a cream-colored cloth. Beneath it was a portrait of his late wife, Elias Rowan. Ilara had loved unpredictable journeys. She followed unfamiliar paths because flowers grew beside them, stopped in the rain to watch droplets gather on leaves, and often laughed when Elias checked his compass, even though the village church was clearly visible. Not every good moment needs a direction, she used to tell him. But after Ilara died during a sudden mountain storm, Elias changed. He convinced himself that he should have predicted the weather and returned earlier. He replayed every choice until regret became a prison. From then on, he measured everything, avoided uncertain roads, and told himself he was simply being careful. In truth, he was afraid. His life became organized, predictable, and painfully small. One rainy afternoon, someone knocked on his workshop door. When Elias opened it, he found an 11-year-old girl wearing a muted red wool cape. Rainwater dripped from her copper auburn braid, and she held a tan canvas satchel tightly against her chest. "Are you Elias Rowan?" she asked. "I am. The man who never gets lost?" Elias paused. "I draw maps. That does not mean I always know where life is taking me." The girl introduced herself as June Bell and removed an old folded map from her satchel. The paper was stained, torn, and incomplete. Several lines had faded, while others ended without reaching a destination. "My mother made it before she died," June explained. "She told me about a hidden ridge where the sunrise helped people remember what truly mattered. She promised to take me there, but she never got the chance. My aunt and I are leaving Belmere next week, and I want to find it before we go." Elias examined the paper and shook his head. Its scale was inconsistent, its compass markings were incomplete, and its landmarks appeared to have been drawn from memory. "Following this could be dangerous," he said. "I know," June replied. "It may not lead where you think." "I know that too." "Then why are you asking me?" June looked down. "Because if I leave without trying, I'll wonder about it for the rest of my life." Elias apologized and refused. June did not argue. She folded the map and turned toward the door. But before she left, Elias noticed a tiny five-petaled wildflower drawn near one corner. Years ago, Elara used that exact symbol. She placed it in the margins of her journal whenever she discovered somewhere beautiful. Elias called June back, unfolded the map, and held it near the window. Faint handwriting appeared on the back. Some places cannot be found by measuring the distance. The words sounded like Elara. Elias asked whether June's mother had ever mentioned traveling with someone. June nodded. She once said the kindest woman she ever met taught her that beautiful journeys don't always follow perfect roads. Elias looked toward Elara's covered portrait. Every instinct told him to refuse, but something stronger than fear had awakened: curiosity, memory, and the possibility that Elara had traveled the same route. "I cannot promise we will find it," he said. June smiled. "I don't need a promise." Elias reached for his compass. "We leave before sunrise." The following morning, June arrived with her Aunt Mara Bell, a practical and caring woman with strong bakery worker arms and worried eyes. Mara asked Elias not to take unnecessary risks. Elias promised only that he would do everything reasonably possible to return June safely. They left Belmere before dawn. Elias carried his compass, notebook, supplies, and map tube, while June protected her mother's map inside her satchel. At first, they followed a familiar northern road. Elias checked his compass every few minutes, while June watched birds, touched moss-covered stones, and stopped to examine wildflowers. "If you keep stopping, we'll lose time," Elias told her. "Maybe," June replied, "but we might notice something." By mid-morning, they reached a fork where the trail marker had fallen beneath wet leaves. June's map showed a tree shaped like an open hand. Elias saw only hundreds of ordinary trees, but June searched until she found an ancient beech with 5 enormous branches reaching toward the sky. The map turned east, although Elias believed the northern part was safer. "Maybe safer isn't where my mother went," June said. Reluctantly, Elias followed her east. Soon, heavy fog covered the forest. His compass needle trembled near iron-rich rocks, and the path disappeared beneath damp grass. Then June heard wind passing through hollow stones, producing a low musical sound. Her map showed 3 stones surrounded by curved lines. They followed the sound and discovered 3 tall rocks with openings through their centers. A narrow trail continued behind them. Elias could not deny it. The map was guiding them through things that could not be measured precisely. By afternoon, rain began falling. A sudden gust pulled the map from June's hands and dropped it into rushing water. She recovered it, but several lines dissolved before her eyes. Elias said they had to return. Before they could move, the mountain shook. Stones, mud, and broken branches crashed down the slope, blocking the path ahead. Elias pulled June behind a tree, but when the noise ended, he stood frozen. Memories of Elara's final storm returned. The dark clouds, rushing water, and the moment he realized he could not control what was happening. He gripped his compass until it hurt. "We are going back," he said. June looked behind them, where rising water and fallen branches had also damaged the return route. She opened the ruined map. Most of its lines had disappeared, but several pictures remained. The hand-shaped tree, singing stones, a stream, and a ridge beneath a rising sun. "Maybe the missing part is the part we're supposed to see for ourselves," she said. Elias told her that bravery did not remove danger. "I know," June replied, "but fear doesn't remove it either." Her words struck him deeply. For years, Elias had believed that worrying, planning, and hiding would protect him from pain. But fear had not protected him from loss. It had only prevented him from living afterward. He loosened his grip on the compass. "What else did your mother draw?" June pointed to a curved stream that reflected the sky. They searched carefully and found it near sunset, shining like a ribbon of pale light. Beyond it stood an abandoned shepherd's hut, where they stayed overnight. Inside, June confessed that she feared forgetting her mother's laugh. Sometimes I feel as if losing the details means losing her again. Elias looked at his wedding ring. I remember everything about Elara, yet remembering has not made the pain easier. June thought quietly and said, maybe remembering isn't supposed to stop the hurt. Maybe it reminds us that the love was real. Elias had spent years using memory as evidence against himself. He had never considered that it could be something gentler. The next morning, after the storm cleared, they followed the remaining landmarks until they discovered a narrow path leading toward open sky. This time, Elias did not check his compass. They reached the hidden ridge as the sun rose over the mountains. Pale grass and wildflowers covered the ground, rivers glittered far below, and Belmere looked tiny in the distance. Near the edge stood a stone marker with a weathered wooden box beneath it. Inside were two letters and a pressed wildflower. One letter was addressed to June. The other carried Elias's name. June's mother wrote that June should not fear leaving Belmere because moving forward would not erase the past. You do not have to remember every detail perfectly to keep my love, the letter said. Love becomes part of the person you are. June cried quietly. Then Elias opened his letter. It was written by Elara. She explained that she and June's mother had discovered the ridge years earlier. Then she wrote, you always believed love meant protecting people from every danger. But love was never a promise that nothing painful would happen. If the storm returns to your memory, do not turn our entire life into one mistake you believe you made. I never blamed you. Not for the weather, not for the road, and not for being human. No map can promise that we will never get lost. It can only remind us there is always another direction. Elias covered his face and cried. For years he had filled Elara's silence with blame, but beneath the sunrise, he finally allowed himself to grieve without defending or punishing himself. June simply sat beside him. After some time, Elias placed his compass on the grass and looked toward the sky. He finally understood that letting go did not mean losing Elara. It meant releasing the belief that pain was the only way to remain loyal to her. When they returned to Belmere, Mara embraced June and Elias returned to his workshop. The following morning, he opened every shutter and removed the cloth from Elara's portrait. Her smile no longer felt like an accusation, it felt like a welcome. Elias continued drawing careful maps, but on each one, he left a small blank space near the edge and wrote beneath it, room for what life may reveal. When a merchant complained that a map should show everything, Elias smiled. A good map shows enough to help you begin. Life must show you the rest. June began visiting his workshop, where Elias taught her to measure rivers and roads, while she taught him to notice flowers, changing light, and the sound of wind through trees. Sometimes they walked beyond Belmere without deciding where they would go. Elias still carried his compass, but he no longer held it as though his life depended on it. My friend, perhaps you are also waiting for complete certainty before taking your next step. Make your plans, prepare carefully, and learn from the past. But do not let fear become the map that controls your life. There will always be roads you cannot predict and answers you cannot receive in advance. A map may show you where the road begins, but only courage can show you who you become along the way.